I'm John Lee with the St. Louis Real Estate Investors Association, and today is July 17th, 2020, and we're here for the weekly updates with Kathy Davis of Davis, Travaglini LLC, and we're so happy to have you. Thank you, Kathy, and please update us.
Great. Good to see everybody. I actually made a list this time. I feel like, we do this weekly because everything keeps changing. As we probably all know, the news about the virus isn't great right now. And so our courts seem to be kind of bouncing in and out of what they're willing to do. The county is still not allowing sheriff executions. And I have to tell you, I think this is more, they just don't want to do it than really a safety thing. But they've formed a new committee of landlord-tenant lawyers, and the presiding judge asked me to head that up, and he's going to consult with us. So we're hoping to persuade them that, the execution should start. The problem is a lot of these folks have been getting this enhanced unemployment and everything, and if they're not, threatened with losing their place, they're not going to pay their rent. And we still have a fair number of executions pending that are from before the pandemic started. So those people have just hunkered down and, are staying for the duration. Mm-hmm. And I have to think that collecting those monies when we get the people out is going to be hard. And you now have people in a position where they couldn't get caught up even if they wanted to. They've gotten so far behind. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've seen, if you read in the papers, there's funds that the city has, and I think the county has, to help people who are being evicted. And I would say two things about that. I would feel free to refer your tenants to those resources, because that's what they're for. And some of those resources are being monitored or deployed by places like Arch City Defenders, where they're going to only make sure that it gets paid to the landlord or to the mortgage company if it's supposed to, prevent evictions and foreclosures. So that should be a good thing. And I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with those resources. Christine had Zoom trials yesterday scheduled in the county, but they all settled. So we still haven't entirely worked through in the county how that's going to be. The judge has issued a good order about how he wants exhibits produced and that kind of thing, but we haven't really done that yet. We have done some Zoom trials in the city. That's gone fine. The city's using WebEx. I was just on a call earlier where I was kind of begging there's a judge in the Southern District Court of Appeals who's in charge of court technology. And I was like, could we please use Zoom in the city just for the big dockets? Because Zoom has, if any of you have used this, they have the breakout rooms. So when the judge is calling the docket, Christine and I are both, on the Zoom, the judge can tell someone if they show up for us, I'm going to assign you and Kathy to the breakout room. And then I go in there and try to settle the case with them. And I'll tell you, Christine's a genius because she figured out that we could use DocuSign, and we've been able to get people into a breakout room, work out a deal with them, email them the consent judgment, have them sign it with their finger or whatever, and email it back to us. It's almost like being in real court, except it takes longer. But it's worked very well. We've been really pleased with that, but we can't do it in the city because we don't have breakout rooms. So we're kind of left hanging with, asking them to call us because the judge can't stop the docket every time someone wants to make a deal. And sometimes they don't call us, and sometimes we call them and they don't pick up. And then it's kind of a gray area about whether they're in default then, or they get a new court date. What Chris has been doing, because Chris is also a genius, is he has been asking the judge when the person shows up and they're being referred to call us to make the next court date a trial setting, a week or two off, so that if they just blank us out and we never get hold of them, we can at least have the trial setting and hopefully, get a judgment then. And I think we've worked through in all our counties, I think we've worked through being able to take default judgments. Because they're sending out the proper notices now. And in fact, in the city, our judge has told all the other lawyers to use Chris's notice form. so that they get the notice of how to call in and everything. So they have their due process. So we can take defaults if they don't appear.
Mhm.
And as you know, probably from the media, last week the city started doing evictions. The protesters went to City Hall to protest that. And the next day the article was rents are rising. So I think I told all you guys last week, and I'll tell you again, raise your rents. You know, apparently there's a scarcity. I would be delighted to see that. In the city also, Chris is trying the first live trials they've had since shutdown on a couple of cases he has that are 441 type evictions where the tenant is, you know, loco or whatever, dealing drugs, whatever they're doing, driving everyone crazy. And the judge told him he was the first one to get to do that. So we'll see how those go. I'm a little worried about him going into the courthouse, but he'll have his mask, and we bought a big box of cheap pens to give people so that we don't have to touch their pens. And he's got gloves and everything. So we're as prepared as we can be for the city. Jefferson County was one of the early openers, and they had to shut down again. Early Tuesday morning, we were all notified that one of their, and this seems to be a common thing, one of their sheriffs that provides security to get into the courthouse came down with, tested positive with COVID. So they shut everything down. Chris went down and did his docket in the parking lot. He actually chased one guy back to his trailer park and at least got the guy to sign a trial memo. But they are actually going to be using Zoom for their court for a while, which we all have our jokes about Jefferson County. And, you know, the squirrels are going to have to run hard in the wheel to keep all the internet going down there. But we don't know how long they're going to be shut down for. So they were open for a while and they shut down. In St. Charles, everything is still live, but I feel like they're getting nervous. I know the county executive out there. He used to be a judge. He's a nice guy, very conservative. And he's, I think, starting to worry about, you know, the spike in COVID rates out there. He's done some media about possibly, you know, shutting down certain places, which probably means bars and gyms. But we're hoping they'll keep the courthouse open. But if it becomes too scary, I guess they won't. And everywhere but the county is doing sheriff's executions on judgment. So if we can get you to a judgment anywhere but the county, we can execute on it. Federal court had a positive test on Monday with, again, a marshal who was providing entrance security, and they reopened on Tuesday. You know, they have, I think, more funding and better efficiency than the state courts, so they were able to open right back up. And they were supposed to be having actual jury trials this week, which I was kind of surprised, but I think they were. And I think I may have told you before, St. Charles has started trying to do jury trials in the family arena so that they can space all the jury pools. They really have a big problem with the criminal trials because of the right to a speedy trial. And I've got one other little bit of news for you. As some of you know, I live in the city in the Central West End, and we have a special business district that has a special taxing authority, and we use that money for extra security and cleanup and for cameras. And the Board of Aldermen in the city, which is filled with a bunch of lunatics, I think, is trying to pass a bill today. I think it's Board Bill 95 that is going to place all these restrictions on how these cameras can be used. And apparently their rationale is, you know, that this helps the police in some way, which I think is a dumb rationale. But we've been trying to make arguments to them, but they just whizzed the bill through just this week. They didn't even spend a while with it in committee or anything. So if anybody knows anybody in the city, any alderman, that you can give them an email and say, this is a bad bill. One of the things that it contains is it says that if your security cameras are not in compliance with whatever their plans are, you have to get them approved by all these agencies. And if you don't do that, they're not in compliance, then any evidence that you get from the cameras cannot be used in court and has to be destroyed. And I can tell you that if a judge is told that somebody destroyed evidence, it's not going to be pretty. So I think that part of the bill is grossly illegal and poorly thought out. I also feel like these are the same people that want all the police to have body cams, which is probably not a bad idea. But, you know, these security cameras are like big body cams. I mean, they record everything. So the people who are afraid that the police are overreaching, and I think in some cases they are, you know, that'll get captured on the camera. And that's another source that they can have to show that. The other thing that it's done, at least in my neighborhood, because I review all the reports every month, is we get security footage and the police, you know, it looks kind of blurry, but the police have facial recognition technology and they can get the image and clean it up. They're not arresting the wrong person. You know, to be very blunt, they're not arresting just any black guy walking down the street. They're arresting the guy from the camera that was filmed doing the crime. Mm-hmm. And the crimes that we've had in the last month or two that the security cameras helped with include one guy who was walking his dog and was apparently enjoying a little Corona juice in his apartment because he was hammered, and he was became somewhat incapacitated, and someone came along and saw the opportunity to lift his wallet. Yeah, and there was also a guy who also, I guess we're all alcoholics in the Central West End, also was a little impaired maybe, and another opportunistic person came along and found the opportunity to take his car keys out of his pocket. So, and in both cases, the people were apprehended. I mean, those are not heinous crimes, but it's not good to have people walking around doing that. And, you know, they picked up the right person and now they have good evidence. I mean, not sure I understand why they're doing this dumb bill, but it won't be the first legislative body that's passed something stupid. So I think that's all my updates. Have we got any questions?
We have one here. Ann wanted to know what's the bill name or the number in the city regarding the security camera?
I think it's 95. Let me look that up real quickly to confirm.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be up for a final vote today. Yeah, it's Board Bill 95.
Okay. Board Bill 95. Okay.
It's being introduced by Annie Rice and John Collins Mohammed.
Okay. Wow. Well, it's definitely been an interesting week, Kathy, to say the least.
I'm not sure how many weeks we've been doing these, maybe 10 or 12, maybe a little longer. But who knew at the beginning? I mean, this is really winding around in unpredictable ways.
It's kind of like Nightline. We've all of a sudden turned into a show that's ongoing. You know,
right.
So
yeah,
it's very.
So I was on this meeting earlier today. What I mentioned when I was talking about the Zoom versus WebEx, and this is a Supreme Court commission that was created a couple of years ago to reform the civil courts, and I'm basically on there mostly playing defense. But you know, we had our last live meeting in like January, and we were talking about making a rule to allow some video appearances, and you know, some of the people didn't want to do it at all and that kind of thing. And now, whoosh, we're doing that right now. We were saying then that, oh, that's going to be 5-10 years out before we do that. You know, I mean, it's happening. Yes. We're learning a lot.
That's the key right there. I know the learning curve for me, you know, and personally was a big one right now, because I've been doing Zoom meetings 6, 7, 8 years now, but all of a sudden we're thrown into the fire and we have to just do it. It's just part of our life. So,
okay, I think I just saw a question.
Yeah, here's a couple questions here.
Okay.
If we had a court date in the city next week, did I understand there's a chance of getting a default judgment?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Is it with us? Are we the lawyers?
Yeah, Ann, is that with these guys here, with us? Okay, we'll let her answer. But then Diana wants to know if a tenant refuses to pay their last month's rent and leaving you to use their security deposit to cover the rent, any recourse?
Well, you know, that's one of those hard questions, because on the one hand, you might not want to spend the money to file the eviction. On the other hand, they could use the security deposit, quote unquote, to pay the last month's rent and still not move or damage the apartment and that kind of thing. I think most leases talk about the security deposit not being moved for the last month's rent, you know, and you know your tenants better than we do, but I would certainly consider filing a suit sooner rather than later, particularly if you think they're not trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I see you can't recall who your property management company uses. Can you say the name of the company? I might know then if it's us. We have sent the proper notices out to get defaults next week per what the court wants. I don't know that everyone has. The judge was telling people on the docket on Wednesday that they should use Chris's notice. She showed a copy of it on the WebEx call to everyone and said, this is the form that I want. So we've been doing the proper things to please the judge. I don't know if everyone has.
Okay.
A new landlord in the city. Oh, if you call Chris, Maria, or anybody, if you call Chris at my office, he's very busy today. He's like the one thing about this remote stuff is it's easier to bounce back between courts. He can get from St. Charles to the city very quickly. But if you call our office maybe on Monday and ask for Chris, our number is 314-962-1115, extension 11. He has a lease form on his computer, and he can talk to you to see if you have any special needs or requirements, and he can email you that lease. We generally just give those to people. If you want us to write something up special or, research a special clause you want, we might charge you a little bit.
Yeah, I'd recommend using the one that the standard one you do use with maybe a variation or two, but yeah, definitely the one you use is the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We like it.
It covers everything. Yeah, in my experience. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions out there? Some really good updates actually this week, Kathy. I'm really glad you do spend the time with us. It's really, really helpful for all us landlords and everybody wanting to know what's really going on. You're right there.
Well, at about 10 o'clock, I run around to Chris and Christine and go, okay, what are we doing? Do we have the sheriff in the county yet? Are we doing trials? And I find out because it changes so fast.
It does. Yeah. And everybody listening out there, make sure you go to Google and leave Kathy a great review. Please do so, because the tenants ex-tenants, I think, is what most of them are not the nicest people, and they're not very truthful in almost 100%.
Yeah, they're telling me I'm the child of the devil,
I know. I did have to laugh, even though it is a serious matter, because we do want to have the truth out there.
I appreciate it. And my friend Michael, who's usually on these calls, but I don't see his name here today, has been helping. And I told him I had just been ignoring it. And he said, no, you want your rating to go up, because some people just look at the rating.
Yeah, they do.
So I appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, very important. We did send out a link, and we'll do it again also, Kathy, just for people.
Okay.
Make it easy.
Another question. Oh, a tax question. Oh. Maria, I don't know much about tax. You could call me, but I don't know a lot of. It was my worst course in law school.
I think that's more of a question for your accountant or your CPA or whoever does your taxes for you.
Yeah, I'm not knowledgeable about that. How do we do the Google?
We'll send you a link, Dwayne.
Okay.
But you can just go there and look up Kathy Davis, and the reviews will be on the right side, and then just go make your own review. But we'll send you a link.
Yeah, it might be under the long spelling of my name, which is Katharyn. But John has figured it out because he's done a review for me, which I appreciated. So he can send you a good link to that.
We'll send the link out. Yeah, we definitely will. Yeah, because we want the truth, because you guys are really, you have nothing to do with the devil. I can tell you that right now.
Right.
It's funny though. It is almost funny. Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Good to see everybody. And we'll be back next week.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And as always, we do have a recording, which we will have up on the website as soon as I can get the rendition down and get it over there. So thank you so much again. And we really look forward to seeing you again next week.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody, for joining.